Okay then, team preview number 4. It's the turn of the Texas Blue Dallas Fuel. Not so much Texas anymore, it's very much more Korean than ever before, but Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel fans, cover your ears because I'm about to go over your history now, it's not great. Inaugural season, 10th place. Very much underperformed considering they're one of the hot shots coming into the Overwatch League. Then in 2019, 15th, still not great, and in 2020, 13th. So there's a very steady improvement, but it's not massive. I don't think anyone's going to say that. But Dallas Fuel look more promising than ever, that's for sure. Why is that? Because we're going to go over their roster now, that's why. They've shipped out pretty much everything. Well, yeah, pretty much everything apart from one in this off-season, and they have gone all Korean for the first time in Dallas Fuel's history and first time in Team Envious' history, going back all the way to those lunatic high rivalry days in Apex. So, Unco went out, he's retired. Onigod went out to New Kings, and now Onigod is actually on the Paris Eternal. Crimzo out, he's to Houston Outlaws. Paintrush out, he's now at Revival. Note out, hasn't found a team. Trill out, he's retired. Closer out, he's now at the Washington Justice. AKM out, he's retired. And Gamsu out, he's retired. I believe Gamsu's gone back to LoL. I might be wrong. But anyway, so basically, everyone was shipped out. Apart from, yes, Doha. Doha is still here. And he is going to be, again, another flex DPS player for this Dallas Fuel team. The only surviving member of that 2019-2020 roster. Not bad. Doha was one of the big, bright sparks of this Dallas Fuel side, apart from Decay. But we don't talk about Decay because that's a touchy subject for Dallas Fuel. Anyway, who have they brought in to repair and replace this old roster? Well, they brought in basically Paris Eternal. Paris Eternal went through a bunch of monetary issues, should we say, and were unable to keep hold of their old roster. And first of all, they lost their head coach. This was Rush, and he decided, Dallas Fuel? They're offering me money? I like Dallas Fuel. You know what? The Hashtag bloke, he's not too bad, you know? I'm going to go work for this guy. Young was already there, and Aid came along with Rush to create a brand new coaching staff at the Dallas Fuel. And Rush was told by Hastro, "Oh Rush, I give you money. Create me a competitive top of the league roster." And Rush was like, "Okay, Hastro, I give you the Paris Eternal." With some bits added. So, who does he bring in? First of all, Sparkle comes in for the Paris Eternal. Yes, that very high prospect Paris Eternal flex player. He's not massively flexible. His May was okay last year, nothing to set the world alight, but when you get him on that Genji, when you get him on that Doomfist, even on the Pharah, Sparkle can set the world alight. So, yes, very good pickup, but raises some, shall we say, flexibility issues for the Dallas Fuel, but we'll get into that in a minute. Hanbin comes in, yes, you guessed it, from the Dallas Fuel. Hanbin, one of the bigger prospect off tanks in the league. He did actually well last season, not as good as the likes of Choi Hyob and Fury the likes, but he is going to be one of the bigger prospect off tanks in this season, I think, especially now he's got 1 year of the league under his belt. I think he can prosper at the Dallas Fuel on an all-Korean roster as well, and he'll also have a more stable main tank partner. We'll talk about that in a minute. Next up we have Fielder. Oh yes, it's from the Paris Eternal again. Fielder set the world alight when he came in midway through the season to the Paris Eternal, and he was on 200 ping, and he just went nuts on the Ana. And we were like, oh my god, he's the 200 ping god. Let's go. And yes, Paris Eternal couldn't hold onto him because of those monetary issues. And he's now finding himself at the Dallas Fuel as an exciting flex support prospect coming into the 2021 season. And will he start? We don't know, because there is another flex support on the Dallas Fuel. His name's Repel. Yes, Repel from the Houston Outlaws, not the Paris Eternal this time, Repel. Repel, it's an interesting one. Repel's got more experience, but I think Fielder has higher potential than Repel does. However, this is the Element Mystic crew, and Repel Came from Element Mystic originally before being at Vancouver Titans on that old roster. So it's difficult to know who's going to start come this season, and we'll talk about what happened at the next cup in a moment. Then we have the main tank partner for Hanbin. This is going to be Fearless, coming in from the Shanghai Dragons. What a signing! Fearless? Fearless has his ups and downs, right? Fearless is a fantastic Winston player. I think he's got a great Reinhardt. He's pretty good on Orisa. He's not the best on Orisa, but he's pretty good on Orisa. When you put him on Bull, ooh, rough. Fearless has to learn that Bull and get good at that Bull, because that's the one thing that lets him down massively, and it's the one thing that let him down massively towards the end of last season. But Fearless was renowned as one of the best main tanks in the league last season, and it was a very big surprise to see him move over to the Dallas Fuel. Clearly the lure of Hastro and Rush, and perhaps a little bit of cash, clearly lured him away from the Shanghai Dragons, and I think that's a massive upgrade, because, I mean, we're talking about old Paris Eternal here, right? And they were kind of mixed up. They didn't know whether to play Bembest or No Smite, and they just got kind of mixed up with it. But now, we definitely know the Dallas Fuel tank line will be Fearless and Hanbin, and that will be something, a concrete foundation for the Dallas Fuel team to build around, where they've got 3 supports and 3 DPS players that can kind of interchange to adapt to different metas. It is slightly worrying about the Bull situation, because I think a Wrecking Ball dive meta is a big weakness for the Dallas Fuel. A Wrecking Ball meta will be the worst possibility for Dallas Fuel. Like, absolutely worst case scenario. But anything else, Dallas Fuel will be fairly well equipped. In the main support section, we have Jaxa. That's an interesting one. So Jaxa, he was at, again, the Houston Outlaws, and he has massive pop-off potential, right? Because Jaxa, he was a shining light on that Houston Outlaws team last season, that mediocre Houston Outlaws team that finished 16th. So he has, like, carry potential. We've seen Jaxa last year get 3-4 Ks in a fight on Lucio, and it's pretty darn insane if you ask me. So I think that's a really nice pickup for the Dallas Fuel. It may not have been the biggest main support pickup they could have got, but I still think it's a good one. I'm not going to put Dallas Fuel down on that. And then when you look at the rest of this roster, this is what we had for a while, actually. We were worried because there was no right pop-off hit scan. Who's the pop-off hit scan going to be for the Dallas Fuel? Well, it's going to be Xe. Yes, again, from the Paris Eternal. We didn't know whether that was going to happen for a while, but it did end up happening. So Xe, incredible last season. Actually incredible last season. And he had massive pop-offs, especially when Paris Eternal reached the finals in the Summer Showdown. I'm pretty sure it was Summer Showdown. And that was during a Genji meta. Guess what? Sparkle did very well. Xe, a great signing. Xe, maybe not as flexible as some. I think Xe likes the McCree a lot, and therefore that could let them down at times, but it's not a bad signing. So that's your roster for Dallas Fuel. What does it scream to me? Incredible potential in the right meta, but in the wrong meta, big doo-doos. I do worry about the flexibility of Dallas Fuel. That's the only worry that it gives me. However, Dallas Fuel did take part in the NetEase Esports X tournament, or the next cup, whatever you want to call it. And yes, they technically came last, but they had a rough start. They got pretty handily smacked about by Guangzhou and Shanghai Dragons, and we were all very worried. 2 3-0s for a team that we expect to be very, very good against teams that, A, Shanghai they should be able to compete with, and Guangzhou they should have beaten. Like, on paper anyway. That was worrying for Dallas Fuel. And a lot of the time, it was because they were playing Fearless on the Wrecking Ball, and they played a Repel Jaxa support line. They come in the next week of those fixtures, and they played a Seoul Dynasty, runners-up from the league last season, losing out to the San Francisco Shock in the grand finals, and they beat them 3-2. How? Because Dallas Fuel adjusted in that week off. They played Fearless on the Winston, played double bubble with Hanbin on the Zarya, and we saw more Fielder. And suddenly Dallas Fuel looked like a reinvigorated team. So, what does that indicate? The next cup was back in January, and so that was early days for a lot of teams. Very much different to the Steel Series Invitational that we've seen not too long ago in February. So, it was a very early indication of what was going on, and there's a lot of time between then and the start of the season, months. A lot of time to weed out these wrongdoings and the iffy bits and sort them out. And I think that's what this next cup was for Dallas Fuel. It was a testing of the water to see where they were in their development. And that improvement week on week is actually very promising. And if they continue that sort of improvement, again, we're taking into account here that Seoul weren't just completely sandbagging, but I don't think Seoul were. It wasn't necessarily Seoul playing bad, it was just Dallas Fuel playing good. And if we can start seeing that week on week improvement from Dallas, it's promising. Dare I say it, very, very promising for the Dallas Fuel. And there's two sides to the Dallas Fuel argument. There's the people who say Dallas Fuel are going to be great this year, like really, really good. And then there's the people that say Dallas Fuel are going to crash and burn like they always do. And although there's arguments to be made for both sides, this Dallas Fuel roster is unrecognizable from what we've seen before. It's all Korean. Most of them know each other from past teams or teams literally they've moved from. It has got good. It should have good synergy with the coaching staff. It should come in with already built-in synergy with some of the players just to work in others, like, shall we say, I don't know, Repel and Jaxa need to be worked back into that squad, alongside Fearless as well, I suppose. And once that's nailed down, this team could move like clockwork. They really, really could. And if they do, there's no reason why it can't be talked about as a top 5 team. I really don't see why it can't contest people like the San Francisco Shock. It may not beat them. I'm not saying it can beat them, but it can contest them. Just like Paris Eternal did last year. And although you could say that the main support slot is slightly weaker from what the Paris Eternal had, overall, I think this Dallas Fuel squad on paper looks better than what that Paris Eternal squad did. I think they've got a better main tank. I thought they got more diversity in terms. Well, yeah, more diversity is difficult to say because I don't think they've got as much diversity in the hit scan role, but they've got more diversity in the flex role. I think when you have Doha and Sparkle compared to Sparkle and Nico, I think you would take Doha and Sparkle. And there's a very big potential for Dallas to prove the naysayers wrong in 2021. And in some respects, the 2021 season for Dallas Fuel is make or break. They have plunged, Envy have plunged so much money into this squad. This is not a cheap squad by any means. Players that proved themselves big time last season, players with a lot of potential, one of the best main tanks in the league, some of the best flex players in the league, biggest potential players. They've just woven them all into a squad. This is a very expensive roster. And it's Envy, and they're just saying, now is the time, this is the roster, go and win me the Overwatch League. Will they win the Overwatch League with this roster? Oh, I don't know. San Francisco Shock look too good to me. But if the San Francisco Shock don't live up to the perfect expectations that we expect of them, we do know that the San Francisco Shock have lost some things but gained some others. So there's no Ans for the Shock. Yeah, there's no Moth for the Shock, but they've replaced them with very good parts, including part of that Paris Eternal squad, IDFD God. And I don't think Dallas will be able to come out on top of San Francisco Shock, but I don't see a reason why Dallas Fuel can't be one of the people to challenge them. I don't see why Dallas Fuel couldn't be a second place team if they get it right. If they get it right. And we always look at the Dallas Fuel and we always say if. We always are reticent to back the Dallas Fuel because we don't know what they're going to come out with. We don't know if they're going to muck up. We don't know if they're going to implode. Every single season there seems to be an issue with the Dallas Fuel, whether that be XQC, whether that be Decay, whether that be Rascal. There always seems to be an issue with the Dallas Fuel. Can this finally be the season where Dallas Fuel go through the entirety of 2021 with no team issues? If it all moves nicely, if it all ticks along nicely, no backroom issues, no player fallouts, no half the squad playing Valorant all day and not practicing, no team environment issues, this Dallas Fuel team, if it all works, will be good. Maybe not the best, but it will be really good. And it will be the best Dallas Fuel we've seen in the Overwatch League. Can they go that whole season without those issues though? That's the big teller. Up and coming matches for the Dallas Fuel. Their first 6 matches of the season. First of all, they have the Texas Derby against Houston Outlaws. They should be back to win that one. They should be able to beat the Houston Outlaws. And that should be the least close Texas Derby we've seen. However, you never know. You never know with Dallas Fuel. And this is the problem. You never know with Dallas Fuel. Then in the second match of the season, they have the Gladiators. That will be monumental. Because Gladiators are one of the big backers for the 2021 season. They are back to do very well with the additions of Moss and Muse, etc. They are back to do very well. And those two teams should be pitted very close against each other. And it will be interesting to see who comes out on top. It should be a really close series and a really interesting one. Third match of the season, Washington Justice. Oof. This is an interesting one because I think Washington could do extremely well in this season, especially with their tank line. I actually think their tank line is better than Dallas Fuel's. Ooh. This league is going to be really competitive this season. Really competitive. And I think a lot of it will depend on consistency. Washington Justice will be a tough one for Dallas Fuel. Tough one, but it's winnable. If this was Dallas Fuel from last year, I'd say they will get absolutely pummeled by 2021 Washington. Not this Dallas Fuel. They could win it. They could lose it. It'll be very close either way, I think. Then the Boston Uprising in the 4th match of the season, they should win that one. London Spitfire 5th match of the season, they should win that one, although London could pull some surprises. And then in the 6th match of the season, Dallas Fuel versus the San Francisco Shock. That will be massive. If Dallas Fuel, and this is not beyond the realms of possibility, by the time they reach the San Francisco Shock, if the Dallas Fuel are 5-0, that will be a monumental match. Absolutely insane match. There is, however, the possibility that Dallas Fuel are, say, 2-3, 3-2 by then. Fairly even in terms of wins and losses. Then it becomes less monumental. Because you start to expect a San Francisco Shock win and a fairly easy San Francisco Shock win. That is the 2 possibilities for Dallas. They are good, but not epic. Or they're epic. That is the 2 possibilities for Dallas Fuel, in my opinion, this season. They're not going to be mediocre. They're not going to be 15th. If they are that, then this experiment has gone incredibly wrong. And it has backfired big time. Not only on the brand of Dallas Fuel, but on the pockets of envy. Because this roster, as I said, is very expensive. And it will have an impact. They've got to do well this season to make sure that they get a return on how much they've invested into this squad. It is essential that Dallas Fuel do well. And it'll be very interesting to see if they can. In the Western Division, they can be one of the best teams in that division. But will they be? That's the big question. However, that's it for Dallas Fuel. Oh boy, we are... What? The next one is our 5th team. That will be the Florida Mayhem. That'll be an incredibly interesting one, because Florida Mayhem are a dark horse, in my opinion. A very big dark horse. So, watch out for the Florida Mayhem. They are not to be underestimated. Especially you, Dallas Fuel. Because Florida could even be better than Dallas Fuel. Who knows? Depends on how that main tank does. Dallas Fuel know all about that main tank at Florida Mayhem. Anyway, that's for another video. Socials are linked in the video description below for Twitter, for Twitch, for Discord. Join the Discord server to have discussion over there. All the links for Illusion Gaming are also down there as well. I will be leaving it here for this one, so thank you guys so much for this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.